Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is by far the worst adaptation from book to movie in the entire Harry Potter series. And you're probably saying, no, I loved Goblet of Fire. You probably only watched the movies. If you read the books and then watched the movies, you probably understood everything that went on in the movies. People who've only seen the movies, I don't understand how you got through that movie without being really confused on what was going on the entire time. And if you watched the movies and were extremely confused on what was going on the entire time, then it was explained in the books, and that's why you were confused. So today, we are going to break down Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire into 8 episodes for the HBO series to be able to cover all of the details. So then, unlike the Harry Potter and Goblet of Fire movie, we can fix those issues that were left out in the movie. And if you've been watching this series, you're probably thinking 8 episodes, you've been doing 10. Well, recently it's been announced that it's going to be 8 one-hour episodes, or about an average of 8 one-hour episodes. Could be 6, depending on the series, but in total, each season has been promised to be 8 hours long. So I had to figure out how to make it 8 episodes. Originally, when I wrote all this up when it was first announced, I was going to make this 2 seasons because I think Goblet of Fire has so much information. Making multiple seasons for it would do it justice because it is one of the longest books. Yes, Order of the Phoenix is the longest book, but most of that takes place in Harry's head, where Goblet of Fire is just a very dense, fast-paced book of events. And remember, if you like this kind of content where we talk about just theoretical breakdown of a TV series, an eventual breakdown of each episode in the TV series, make sure to like and subscribe so you can get more content like this. All right, so let's start with episode 1. So one of the problems that I was trying to find is I wanted each episode to have a standalone story so that when you watch it, you can just watch that episode and get a story in itself, rather than, oh, hey, we're going to do like 3/4 of a story. It's going to wrap up in the next episode, and that's just how the season's going to be until the end. And then it'll kind of wrap up, but we're also going to set up for the next season. So I wanted each episode to have its own little story arc. So it's going to be Chapter 1, The Riddle House. Chapter 2, The Scar. Chapter 3, The Invitation. Chapter 4, Back to the Burrow. And Chapter 5, Weasley's Wizards Wheezes. So this whole story is just Harry re-entering the magical world, which I don't think anybody's going to complain that is one of the best parts of the series, is just being able to breathe in the magical world. This is just a small setup. Go from normal, recap the previous season and the previous story, just kind of give you a base idea, you know, because he has this dream of the Riddle House, not realizing that it's Voldemort's dad's house until maybe he says, ah, yes, the house of my father. Hate this place, muggles, or something like that. But also just having, you know, from the caretaker's point of view. This is one of the few times in the series that we get the story not from Harry's head. So build that up and have it be ethereal. I don't know. I'm not the director/editor. I'm just trying to figure out how to make the story work. So you have that whole event where you have Frank finding Voldemort and Peter Pettigrew in the house and then eventually dying. But you hear the plan of, oh, they're going to try to kill Harry Potter, you know, my obedient servant within Hogwarts. My plan has to work this way. Yes, I could use someone else, but I would prefer to use the boy. All that fun stuff. Then, of course, you have him waking up. This little section is going to be small. It's probably going to be him writing a letter without a header and just trying to figure out, you know, he has a little vision where he writes to Hermione. And then you have like a voice in his head talking about how Hermione would react. And then he no, to Ron, and you have Ron's reaction, and then he goes to write Albus Dumbledore, and he can say out loud, I don't even know where Albus Dumbledore would be, and then he thinks, oh, I know, and writes Sirius Black. So then you're like, oh yeah, Sirius Black, duh. Then of course, go downstairs, you get the letter from the Weasleys to the Dursleys with all the stamps, little bit of fun, like, and then you have the, can I go to this Quidditch World Cup? And Vernon going, no, you cannot go. He's like, oh, well, let me go finish my letter to my godfather, who is a escaped convict. Oh, well, yes, of course you can go. That sounds wonderful. Goes upstairs. You can have the letter in Ron's voice going, hey, mom should have sent a letter. We're going to come and pick you up no matter what. And then it's them waiting. You have a little segment where they're just sitting there waiting, trying to figure out what time they're coming. And then eventually the Flu Network shenanigans endure, and this is just like the first 20 minutes of the episode. Then you have him going back to the burrow and just magic. You get to meet the entire Weasley family. Oh, look, Hermione's already there. Of course she is. The excitement of getting ready to go to the Quidditch World Cup, talks of Quidditch, and then you hear about the Weasleys' Wizard Wheezes. And what are Fred and George doing? But apparently they've been making jokes. So That's just the whole story. We end the episode at the Weasleys, them being, all right, we're getting ready to get up bright and early in the morning, everybody to bed, and that's the end of the episode. Nothing bad has happened yet till the next episode. Episode 2 is only going to be 4 episodes long, but it is going to be from when they leave to go to the Quidditch World Cup to when they get back. That is going to be the entire episode. Nothing but the Quidditch World Cup in the Wizarding World. So we had a light episode of Wizarding World in the previous one, with being back at the Dursleys and then eventually going to the Weasleys. But this time, we are full-blown punching you in the face with the Quidditch World Cup and everybody from around the world at their finest. We get that first half of the scene, first couple minutes is, hey, let's go up the hill to the Portkey. This is Cedric Diggory. He beat you in Quidditch. My boy! They get to the Quidditch World Cup campground. They're walking around, you have just Arthur Weasley trying to start a fire with a match and kept dropping the match because it's just fun. He's having fun. It's fun to not have to use a wand to make fire. We're doing it like the Muggles do. Then fetching water, we get to see Seamus Finnegan, probably meet Cho Chang, see all these characters that we've seen throughout the first 3 seasons. And you're just like, all of my favorite friends. We see a little bit of Durmstrang students, Beauxbaton, Ilvermorny, because guess what? We know more about the Wizarding World now than we did when even the books came out. So there's so many more details that we can put in, showing a more international culture. So you can show all of these schools. You can also show Wagadu and all of these different schools that we've seen since then and learned about. So now we can actually see these things and learn more about magical culture in just a few minutes, honestly. And then we're going to devote middle of this episode to the Quidditch World Cup. We're not going to go, hey, let's start the Quidditch World Cup and wow, can you believe how great that Quidditch World Cup was? I can't believe Ireland won and Crumb caught the snitch. Oh, look, there's Death Eaters. And that's how it was in the movies, which was extremely disappointing because it was one of the big things that I was super excited about when I was looking forward to the movie. So I really want this show to do the Quidditch World Cup the justice it deserves. We want to see how great Crumb is. So we can see, like, oh wow, he's a great Quidditch player. We want him to be more of a antagonist to Harry throughout the season as like real competition. You already have Cedric. We've already been introduced to Cedric, who is competition. He beat Harry in Quidditch. Only one who has. One man stayed on his broom, the other one didn't. Who caught the snitch? Now we get to see Victor Crumb, who, of course, as with Cedric, as with Harry, is also a Seeker, and one of the best. We get to see the Wronski feint and watch the Ireland Seeker crash into the ground multiple times, which will be fun. And we also get to see the Omnioculars at their finest and get met with Leprechauns, Leprechaun Gold, the Vila, which are all important things that are added to the rest of the story. We get to finally meet Ludo Bagman and have his whole gambling arc in the background of, ripping people off by paying them with leprechaun gold, which of course you have to introduce the leprechauns. Then you have the Chudley Cannon's hat that Ron gets later, and that's just a little bit of tension. It's like, oh man, I hate being poor. But we get the Quidditch World Cup. Quidditch World Cup is over. We're celebrating at the end, and Death Eaters attack. Harry falls asleep dreaming about Ludo Bagman screaming his name, Harry Potter! That does come true. As well as Harry flying on a broom facing against dragons, which was a dream that he had in his 3rd year. So, Harry, are you a seer? Maybe? We don't know. But we wake up. We're running to the woods because there's Death Eaters attacking. Where's my wand? Says Harry. I don't know. Hey, look, there's a strange man. Mors Mordra. Dark Mark. Stupefy, everybody says. And, that's the end of the episode. We get the start of Spew. We get a lot of clues on what's going on in this episode. We don't realize we get a lot of clues, but we get I think we get almost every major player in this episode, and what we don't get in this episode, we get in the next episode on who the villain may be for the season. So this episode and the next episode are setting up for the rest of the season and being able to create that mystery, because Harry Potter is always and will always be a mystery series first. Episode 3. We're back to 5 chapters. We have Chapter 10, Mayhem at the Ministry. Chapter 11, Aboard the Hogwarts Express. Chapter 12, The Triwizard Tournament. Chapter 13, Mad-Eye Moody. And finally, Chapter 14, The Unforgivable Curses. This is kind of a weird lull of an episode. We are finally introducing all of the clues that you basically need to figure out what's going on. You do have more clues that come in later, but you have all the players on the board at this point. And really what it is it's just the introduction to the rest of the season. You have the Triwizard Tournament. You have Death Eaters at the Quidditch World Cup. What's up with that? Mad-Eye Moody gets attacked before his new job, but we don't know what his new job is until the end of the episode when we're introduced with him. So it kind of comes at the beginning, paid off in the middle to the end. And You also have, I need a letter from Sirius. Oh, you sent a letter to Sirius, says Ron and Hermione. And then Ron and Hermione react the exact way that Harry thinks they're going to. And it's perfectly in this. You have that looming, like, something is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen. It can't be that easy of a year. Oh, Quidditch is canceled. All right. Well, that sucks. But we end off the episode with the unforgivable curses. We get to learn about the unforgivable curses. We've heard about the curse that Voldemort used that nobody has ever been able to survive, but we never really heard what it was. And we could absolutely bring it up earlier in the series, but at this moment we hear Avada Kedavra. There's only one person who has ever survived this spell known in history, and he's sitting right in front of me, says Mad-Eye Moody. We also learn about Cruciatus, which gives us a little bit more of a background to Neville. I think in this series, Neville is going to be a bigger character. As of filming this right now, Neville has not been announced as a character. I think they are trying to find the perfect Neville Longbottom because he is the true hero of the story. So of course, they're going to take care to make sure they find the most perfect Neville Longbottom for the series. So, important character. We're going to get a little bit probably more of Neville in the beginning of the series, his doubts and his worries. And, in the third one, we get his fears. And this one, we get his background. It starts with his visceral reaction to the Cruciatus curse. Because, we don't know this at the time, but the one doing the Cruciatus curse is one of the ones who did it to his parents. But just the fact that this is probably the first time that he has ever seen what this curse does, if he wasn't there when his parents got cursed. But that's a story for another time. Video in the card right there. You want to know about Neville in more detail. But this is probably the first time in his memory that he has seen the Cruciatus curse in person. And it's probably gruesome for him because all he can probably see is not a spider, but his parents' faces that he's been seeing growing up, visiting in St. Mungo's, knowing what happened to them, knowing the names of the people who did it to him, but finally getting to see that and probably picturing his family going through that agony. Of course he's going to have a reaction to that. And it's going to be a bigger deal in this season than it was in the movies or even the books, because at this point we know Neville Longbottom is the hero of the story. But anyway, so we have two orphaned boys, the boy who lived and the boy who was left behind, who learn what happened to their parents and see it in front of their eyes. You also have Imperio, but whatever, that's not important. But that wraps up that episode and a nice little bow. The next episode really is just going to be fast paced. Shit hits the fan. Let's go. This episode is going to be the longest and most fast paced episode probably in this season, because it's going to cover 6 chapters and a whole lot of events. Because of course we have 3 tasks plus the graveyard plus the ending scene. That's how many episodes we have left. I didn't want to have a task at the beginning of an episode and then you have to have a task at the end of the episode. That's too many tasks. I thought about putting the Goblet of Fire in the end of the previous episode, but to me, it just didn't really fit because it just kind of like, hey, look, we'll have the Goblet of Fire, and then you have the names coming out, and then you have, did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire? And then it's just kind of not much going on for the first task because all that has to go together. You can't really have, oh, this is the Goblet of Fire, this is Durmstrang and Beauxbaton, and next episode. And then you have the names coming out. So I wanted all that to be together. So this is a very fast-paced, probably the longest episode in the season. The first couple episodes probably going to be a little bit shorter. Maybe not Quidditch World Cup, but you already know my feelings on that. So you have Durmstrang and Beauxbaton showing up. You have the Goblet of Fire reveal, the champions announcement. So let's go over the chapters really quick. So chapter 15, Beauxbaton and Durmstrang. Chapter 16, the Goblet of Fire. Chapter 17, the 4 champions. Chapter 18, the Weighing of the Wands. Chapter 19, the Hungarian Horntail. And chapter 20, the first task. So of course, this whole episode is going to culminate in Harry succeeding in the first task and actually coming out in the lead. Good for you, Harry. Good for you. So it builds up with the, this is going to be nice. I get to sit back and not have to worry about anything this year. I get to enjoy this cool What do you mean I'm a part of this competition? What do you mean it's against a dragon? What do you mean I could die? It's also the episode where Harry is the outcast, because from the point of the Triwizard Tournament Goblet of Fire announcement to the end of the first task, everybody's like, oh, there goes Mr. Potter again. He's got to be the center of attention. Oh, I'm the boy who lives. And nobody freaking cares. I hope he dies by being eaten by a dragon. That would be cool. But of course, by the end of it, they're like, huh, I don't think he really wanted to do this. I think he was telling the truth. Someone's trying to kill him. Thought he was being over dramatic, but I don't know. looks like he might be telling the truth. Because every year, Harry has a moment where he is an outcast. In the first year, it's, when he loses all the points for Gryffindor. They're like, oh, look at that Potter kid causing trouble. In the second year, it's when everybody thought he was the heir of Slytherin. And in the third year, it was kind of on him why he felt like the outcast, but it was because he wasn't allowed to go to Hogsmeade because it was for his safety to not get murdered, or at least for people who thought he was going to get murdered. So, of course, every year he's got to be an outcast for at least a couple chapters. And this is the episode where he's going to be the outcast. And then the episode ultimately ends with the first task, him doing well. And that's just about it. Like, it's a fast-paced episode. By the time you sit down, it'll be over and you're like, whoa, that was intense. And hopefully, if we're going to make it a very long thing, we'll get to see bits and pieces of what the other champions did for their challenge. Because I hated that we didn't find out until the end. Oh yeah, no, Fleur did this, Crumb did that. I didn't even think of flying. And Cedric turned a rock into a dog and then got burned. But yours was cool. And let's not have the Hungarian Horntail escape and chase him through Hogwarts. Like, the challenge itself is exciting enough. We don't need a whole 15-minute sequence of Harry running around the outside of a tower, destroying, I think it's the headmaster's tower or the Gryffindor tower, but one of those is being destroyed, and then Harry flies back. So there's a dragon somewhere loose. That's the first task. We end with Harry getting the clue, probably opening it up and go, rah! So that's it. That's how the episode ends. Congrats, we're halfway through. So I will remind you now that we're halfway through, if you are enjoying this and want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe. I have to throw it out there real quick. But let's keep going. If you thought the last episode was packed full of events that happened in the book, guess what? We have another 6-chapter episode. Let's go over those chapters really quick. So you have Chapter 21, the House Elf Liberation Front. Chapter 22, the Unexpected Task. Chapter 23, the Yule Ball. Chapter 24, Rita Skeeter's Scoop. Chapter 25, the Egg in the Eye. And Chapter 26, the Second Task. So these 6 chapters really go together because it's just the time between the first task and the second task. And of course, the Yule Ball, that's fun. That'll be the first half of the episode. Cool. Harry, Ron, trying to find girls. They're back together. They're best friends again. Hermione has a secret. What is her secret? Who is she going to the Yule Ball with? Because Hermione confronts Ron and says, you don't want to go with a total troll. No, well, I don't want to go with Eloise Midgen. What about you, Hermione? You're a girl. How about you and I go together? I can't go with you. I'm going with someone else. And I'm not going to tell you. Also, one of the big storylines within this episode is going to be the reintroduction of Dobby. Because, of course, at the beginning of the episode, you need to be introduced to Dobby. So by the end of the episode for the second task, he is able to give out Gillyweed. Not Neville Longbottom, Dobby. Dobby is a very important character for the whole series, even as annoying as I thought he was when I read the books. But, very important character, needs to be introduced at the beginning of the episode to help fix the situation at the end of the episode. We also have the whole Winky storyline throughout, but that's part of the clues on what's going on, but also Sparks, Spew, and the creation of the House Elf Liberation Front. So then we get the Yule Ball, then we get Ron and Hermione having their fight, every season. Harry still hasn't figured out this challenge, though. You have the whole half-giant storyline that comes out, like, oh, Hagrid's a half-giant. Let's go see and make sure he's doing well. And then you get the second task, because of course you have to build up, Hermione is going with Crumb. Why? Because he likes her. He has liked her because she's the only one not going after him. So it makes sense. Harry having to be the hero and being like, I gotta save everybody. Oh, you got my best friend. Oh, you got my crush. All right, well, I guess I'll save my best friend and the hot girl's sister. Cool. And that's the end of the second task. Moral fiber. Yep, that's Harry. Full of moral fiber. But there's a lot that goes on in this episode, and that's how it's going to be laid out. It'll be quick. The second task isn't the most exciting task, and we want to spend more time on the third task. So let's get to it. All right, so now we are into episode 6. After this, we only have 2 episodes left, and you're probably thinking, what do we have left? Because this episode is going to end with the final task. The final episode is going to be 5 chapters. It's going to be Chapter 27, Padfoot Returns, Chapter 28, The Madness of Barty Crouch, Chapter 29, The Dream, Chapter 30, The Pensive, and finally, Chapter 31, The Third Task. So this episode is going to be the culmination of all the information. At this point, by the end of the episode, if you have not figured out who the bad guy is, it's too late. It's already happened. We get all of the clues in this episode. We get Barty Crouch Sr. showing up and saying that he's done something bad. Voldemort is coming back. You get Harry's dream about Voldemort getting a letter saying that the job has been done, the loose end has been taken care of, the person at Hogwarts is succeeding at his job at getting rid of loose ends, like Barty Crouch Sr. Then you get the pensive. So you get to see more information, number one, about all of the suspects. You get the realization that Snape is a Death Eater. You get Karkaroff turning on the Death Eaters. You get Ludo Bagman, who is also one of the ones under suspicion throughout the series, being up to something, being an idiot and passing on information, not realizing that he was passing it on to a Death Eater. You also get the Lestranges and Barty Crouch Jr. for torture using the Cruciatus Curse on Frank and Neville Longbottom. So, of course, you get all the clues. You get every single suspect for this brought under question. Because Karkaroff also brings up that Snape is a Death Eater, and then Dumbledore stands up, Snape is no longer a Death Eater, no more than I am. You really believe that? I don't believe you. Anyway, you also get introduced to Barty Crouch Jr., but we get our first glimpse of Bellatrix Lestrange. Well, I'm excited, because she becomes a major player in the rest of the series. So it'll be exciting to see her for just a glimpse, because we didn't get to see her in the fourth movie because they hadn't cast her, but to have just a small little hey, look, here she is. Here's that one character that you're gonna love to hate. So you get all that. And then we get into the maze. And this is the best part. This is one of those things that was destroyed in the movies and was just, hey, look, here's a hedge maze. And Crumb's gone kooky. But now you get giant acromantulas, blast-ended scroots, sphinxes. You get gas that makes everything turn upside down, which is still the easy path for Harry, apparently. But more crazy things going on. And not just a changing hedge maze. And there's two endings that I have in my mind for this episode. Ending number one is Cedric and Harry go, let's put our hands on the cup together. They put their hands on the cup, cut to black. Or they put their hands on the cup, they're teleported to a graveyard, and they go, where are we? And before they can even utter another word, you hear, kill the spare. Avada Kedavra! And Cedric drops dead, cut to black. Either way, the next episode is going to start the same way. But I think those are the two ways that you can end the episode. One is going to be more suspenseful. One is going to be more, oh my gosh, they just killed Cedric Diggory. So either way, both endings would be great, but it depends on what kind of message you want to send is how you end that episode. All right, so we're in the penultimate episode. There's only 6 chapters left. 3 for this episode, 3 for the final episode. This is chapter 32, Flesh, Blood, and Bone, Chapter 33, The Death Eaters, and Chapter 34, Priori Incantatem. So this episode's going to be a little bit different than the rest of the episodes, because it's very few and far between in this series that you are going to have flashback episodes. Because, of course, we get the flashback episode in Season 2 with the diary flashback, but that's not really a flashback per se. The first true flashback that we'll probably have will be in the 3rd season, Moody and Sirius explaining the whole story. Moody explaining part of the story, Sirius finishing off and saying this is how it ended, even though, this is what we were told, and just try to get the whole story together. But most of that is going to be in flashback of them as kids just living their lives. This is going to be a flashback from Voldemort's point of view. It's going to show him, building up power and, we're not going to really understand what he's doing. We're going to see him casting spells, whatever, doing more than what any man has done before. Then we're going to see him entering the Potter's house. And we can make him look more human-like than he does when he's actually full Voldemort form. But we'll be able to watch him walk into the Potter's house and kill the Potters. We're going to then see him escaping into the woods of Albania. Then we'll see a quick flashback of him trying to get the Sorcerer's Stone, then going back to the woods of Albania, and then meeting up with Peter Pettigrew, and then seeing Bertha Jorkins. And we're not going to see who his secret person in Hogwarts is yet. Nope, because there's 4 people it could be. We don't want to give it away. Of course, we see that story, and then him being brought back. Then they duel. And of course, then we get the Priori Incantatem. All of the ghosts from his past show up, popping out of his wand. And then his father comes out. He gets to see his mother and father for the first time in all of their full glory. He gets to see them in the Mirror of Erised, but he finally gets to interact with them. And of course, it's in the worst way possible because it's a life or death situation, and they say, listen, we are going to stop him, you get out of here. And Cedric goes, take my body back, I want to give it to my dad. Cool. So Harry then breaks the connection. The spirits stop Voldemort for a second to allow Harry to split second to run off, Accio Portkey, get out of here, and the episode ends right there. Also, the way the episode begins, I talked about it in the last video, the episode is going to begin the same way. They're going to show up in the graveyard and be like, huh, where are we? Kill the spare! Avada Kedavra! That's how it's going to be. Whether they show that in the previous episode or not, it's going to be in the next episode, and this current episode. Now, this episode, though, is going to end, fade to black, he apparates away. You're like, oh, crap. Voldemort's back, and Harry got away by the skin of his teeth. And now we get the final episode of this season. 3 more chapters to cover. Chapter 35, Veritaserum, Chapter 36, The Parting of the Ways, and Chapter 37, The Beginning. So this episode is going to be a very somber episode. This is The Empire Strikes Back. We lost. Voldemort has returned. We need to get our crap together to be able to stop him. Oh, shucks. Cornelius Fudge doesn't believe us. This is going to make things a lot harder, boys and girls. But we also get the final, this is the, let's reveal who the villain was the whole time by taking off his mask, Scooby-Doo style. But there's a lot of different things. So we show up on the front of the course with the Triwizard Cup and Dedrick Diggory. And then Mad-Eye Moody says, come with me, Harry, drags him off. And this is a special point. This is one of the few pivotal moments that really show who Severus Snape is. So we learned about the Foglass early on in the season that, you know, you're only ever in true trouble when your enemies show up on the mirror and you can see them clearly and see the whites of their eyes. The door gets blasted in, and on the mirror you see McGonagall, Dumbledore, and Snape. At this point, Snape has given himself away. He is an enemy to the Death Eaters. It's a little hint. It's such a subtle hint that he is an enemy to the Death Eaters. Right there, that little moment. We all missed it. But they come in. We realize that Mad-Eye Moody is not actually Mad-Eye Moody. That man has been in a case for 7-8 months. This man is Barty Crouch Jr., the true first escaped Azkaban prisoner. Not Sirius Black, but Barty Crouch Jr. And then we get another flashback in this episode showing the rest of the story, filling in the holes that we didn't get from Voldemort. Because of course Voldemort isn't going to brag about someone else. But Barty Crouch Jr., we will see the events from the court case that we've seen. We'll see him going to Azkaban, him being snuck out of Azkaban, him living under control of the Imperius Curse, which is important because we hadn't seen or known anybody who had the Imperius Curse put upon them. So now we get that with Barty Crouch Jr. from Barty Crouch Sr. Mr. Goody Two-Shoes himself has a dying wish for his wife. And then we see him stealing Harry's wand in the Quidditch World Cup, casting Mors Morta, being knocked out, Barty Crouch Sr. and Winky covering their tracks, Winky being sacked, and eventually Voldemort coming and setting him free, and the tables being turned because now Barty Crouch Jr. has the Imperius Curse upon his father, rather than his father having the Imperius Curse upon him. Actually, it's Peter Pettigrew, but poetically, it should be Barty Crouch Jr. who cast Imperio on to Barty Crouch Sr., just because that's how it was for him. Them then attacking Mad-Eye Moody, stuffing him in a case, and then little clips of Barty Crouch Jr., you know, helping Cedric, talking to Rubeus Hagrid, helping Harry, you know, hinting to Dobby, like, oh, you know, I wonder if Harry's going to use gillyweed. Little things like that. And then it ends with a Dementor swooping in and sucking out his face. Then the episode ends with a couple name drops. You know, we get the Arabella Fig, the Mundungus Fletcher, because, you know, both of those characters have been mentioned since the first and second books. So we get little hints of, oh, Mundungus Fletcher did this, he did that, he did this. Oh, we have Mundungus Fletcher here. And then you also have Arabella Fig. Wait, Arabella Fig, that's the babysitter from the first season, right? Like, we saw her in just a clip. Like, oh, look, there's Arabella Fig. Nope. Is she a wizard? I guess we'll find out next season. So you hear all of these names that are important to the Order. Hey, Lupin, go liaison with the werewolves. Hagrid, liaison with the giants. Arthur, use your connections in the Ministry, but be subtle because Cornelius Fudge kind of not into this thing. So, you know, let's get this together and maybe we can stop this before it starts. And that's it. It kind of ends on a solemn, hopeful note, like, hey, we got this ahead of time, but hopefully we're not too late. We also get the small moment that isn't in the movie, but is in the books, that is very important to the story as a whole, of when Harry says, he used my blood to resurrect himself. And Dumbledore just kind of goes, and Harry's like, wait, what was that? It's probably nothing. I'm just tired. But we find out that Dumbledore knew all along that Voldemort uses his blood, which Voldemort would, because Dumbledore knows Voldemort pretty well. As it's like, I know what spell he makes. Ancient magic, blood magic. And Voldemort would only use what he thinks would be the strongest. But of course, it always backfires. So that would be the end of season 4. There's a lot in that season. It is going to be packed full. I'm looking forward to it. I was looking forward to the Goblet of Fire before Sorcerer's Stone even came out in theaters. I was like, oh, I can't wait for the 4th movie before I even was in the seats for the 1st movie. Because of course I had to finish the 4th book before I was allowed to see the 1st movie because I started reading it all at that time. But still, I'm excited just for the series as a whole. I think it's going to be so good. And I'm going to do more news videos, so make sure to subscribe. So when information comes out, trailers come out, I will post my reaction and my thoughts about new character announcements and trailers and information. Cast photos should be coming out any day now. So look for that. And the only way to look for that is make sure you subscribe and turn on alerts. So without further ado, we will see you in the next video, and make sure to stay marvelous. Nox.